So the questions you probably have is, who is this guy and why should I listen to him and what does he know about education? Well, it's really simple. I'm a mobile strategist. I've been providing mobile solutions for businesses, individuals, professionals, government agencies for 20 some odd years. I only look like I'm 12 and act like I'm 12, but I'm really the old dude in the room probably. All right. There's a special place in my heart for education. I just absolutely love what's happening, and everything that Elliot was saying earlier today, I swear I think he was looking at my stuff. Is that what was happening here? Is that me? But I have always approached these types of things from the standpoint of I've never believed in meetings for the sake of meetings, and I've never believed in delivering content that wasn't actionable. So I promise you, I'm going to give you stuff that you can take back and start using today. Is that okay? Yeah, all of a sudden these people are starting to wake up. I like this. All right. So we're going to talk about designing a successful mobile learning program. There we go. All right. And there are some significant promises for mobile learning. Elliot's already talked about the anywhere, anytime educational bit, the enriched student experience that makes all of this better, collaboration and the ability to have that extended support. Oh, and let me tell you about collaboration. So I have an 11-year-old granddaughter. I know, see, you didn't know it was the old dude, right? So I have an 11-year-old granddaughter, and it is so funny when I go to their house to watch her do her homework. Because here's what I see. Now, we all know how we approached our homework, right? I see her sitting at her desk with her laptop open, right? She's got her iPhone sitting in a zebra pink stripe stand. Her BFF Brooke is there on FaceTime, and she's got her dad's iPad blowing Pandora in the background, okay? So this is, I have to laugh because they call it collaboration. We used to call it cheating, but hey, whatever. If this is done right, obviously you get higher achievement, and the bottom line with all of this, and I think Elliot hit it right on the head, is it is one-to-one. In order to get the types of results that we have to have out of this and that we look to meet this expectation, devices have to be deployed one-to-one. And when you think about it, when you think about your own experience, when you've got your own phone, your own device, that's a very personal piece, right? That's not some corporate-issued laptop. That's not some school-issued device. That is something that becomes very personal. I recently wrote an article, and I was explaining that if you go into any Apple store, when the phones are unboxed, they're all the same. But it only takes a couple of seconds for that phone to become as unique as that person's fingerprint. You download a couple of apps, you put your email on it, and all of a sudden it's you. That's what you need to get to, one-to-one, in order to make this thing really, really work. So, here's where it gets good. Success leaves clues. That was something that Tony Robbins said. Success leaves clues. After all of these years of working with businesses and schools and such, there is a clear path to success in doing these types of deployments. It has to do with the environment, right? Where are you now and where are you headed? Very important. Think about all of the assets that you have in place currently and what do we want to get to. From a student technology standpoint, are we talking about a traditional deployment? And by traditional, what I mean is, we've got netbooks and notebooks that we've been deploying forever, and they've been in carts and such, right? The challenge has always been, how do you get to one-to-one? And if we could have done it in the manner that we've had access to in the past, we would have been there by now. We would have been able to do this. But I always see the same challenges. When I talk to schools and superintendents and I say, okay, the data indicates that one-to-one is where we need to go. You know it. We know it. Why haven't you done it? What's the answer? Come on, what's the answer? The money, right. It's always about the cash. It's never been something that's been scalable and affordable and just doable. It's just too darn expensive. So as a result, we look at BYOD, right? I get it. BYOD is a perfect solution to the money problem. The challenge, though, is it creates a whole different set of issues. The quick five, right? BYOD. You've got kids that have them and kids that don't. And there's a digital divide. I don't care what the media says. It's real and it exists. If you solve that problem, you have the issue of the diverse nature of devices that can be brought into a school. And I was with a school district in northern Ohio, and it was so funny. The curriculum director said, "I know, these kids, they're bringing their like iPod Nanos. What's that all about?" Yeah, what are you going to do with that thing? So our idea, we think about notebooks and netbooks and laptops and the traditional pieces. They're thinking about things like the Wii U, which has a web browser, the Sony PSP. So we have to solve that problem and get the devices standardized. If you solve those two problems, my daughter-in-law is a 5th grade teacher, and I love her to death, but she has like 0 aptitude for technology. And unfortunately, I know you all know someone like this. Do you know someone when their smart card doesn't work, it's over, right? We're just done. Okay? Yeah. So the problem is in BYOD, there's such a diverse nature of devices, and when there is an issue, the hand goes up. Who's got to deal with it? The teacher has to deal with it right on the spot. So you've got to solve that problem as well, and they're just not equipped to handle the technical pieces of it. But if you solve those 3 classroom issues, then you've got the issue of security and SIPA compliance, right? Where are my IT guys? Yeah, see, I'm an old COBOL Fortran programmer. IBM 360, 370 mainframe. Feel the love. It's a big issue. SIPA compliance is a reality, and then you've got the potential disruptive nature of devices in a classroom. We think about doing the traditional stuff, but when you open it to BYOD and people are bringing smartphones, phones ring and they beep and they buzz and they text and all of those things happen that cause issues. Not to mention that it's all well and good when they're on your network. But what happens when that kid flips off your Wi-Fi, turns on his 3G or 4G radio? It is off to the races. Katie, bar the door. It is wide open, right? So I get it. I understand why BYOD is attractive, but we've got some issues that have to be resolved as well. Most of what I've seen have been some sort of hybrid type deployment, some combination of the two, where depending upon the type of device that was being deployed, it was a netbook or a notebook, and now tablets, that type of thing, and then kids are also bringing their own devices. So there's a variety of student technology that has to be dealt with that we have to sort through. So here's my gift to you today. How do you get there? Here's the time. If you haven't been taking notes to this point, this is the time to bust it out. There are 7 key components that have to be addressed, and I don't care what type of deployment you're going to do, whether it's something that's traditional or whether it's something that is BYOD. 7 key components have to be addressed. Are we ready? You sure? I don't hear anything. What's up? All right, here it comes. First piece, classroom connectivity. I don't care how good the stuff is. If you can't use it in the classroom, it is useless. Would you agree? Show of hands? All right, just making sure. Good. You have to have a reliable, consistent experience. And to my daughter-in-law's acclamation, it better work, and it better work the first time. Got no patience for it, right? That doesn't cause any IT issues, does it, guys? All right. Second piece, it's got to be scalable. As both Jeff and Elliot said earlier, this technology can't sit on the surface. In order to get the real impact out of it, it needs to be deeply embedded into the curriculum. It has to be something that takes advantage of the fact that it is it's a digital device. It's not a book or a piece of paper. It's digital. So I'm going to share something with you. This is one of my favorite examples of an embedded piece that you can take back to your classrooms tomorrow. Ready? There is an application called Layar, L-A-Y-A-R. Got it? Layar at layar.com. This is an augmented reality app that was created for print advertisers. So think about this. You've got Nike, who runs an ad in, Sports Illustrated. And when you open the page to that ad and you take out your smartphone or your tablet and you look at the ad through the camera, through the Layer app, Nike's able to overlay digital content on top of the ad. So you might get something like, press here to see a photo of, Michael Jordan dunking or winning his last championship. Press here to go to Amazon and order the shoes. It overlays content. So here's how this works in the classroom. Think about a teacher who's doing a lesson on George Washington, right? Iconic photo, Washington crossing the Delaware. That was my best George Washington crossing the Delaware impression. Okay. If you were to look at that photo through Layer, maybe the teacher has overlaid digital content on that image. So they put the photo up on the smartboard, they layer on top of it, and maybe it's press here to go to Wikipedia, press here to watch, I don't know, some play of George Washington. You get the idea. Best example that I heard, though, I was with a college, and I was explaining to them about Layer, and one of the science professors said, "Oh my gosh, the periodic table. What could I put on the periodic table? That would be amazing," right? See? So was that worth the trip, just learning about that? I got you now, because the best is still coming. All right, so media-rich experience. You've got to actually get it in there and make it real. One of the big issues is the expense of all of this. You've got capacity demands and access demands, and that all costs money. And no matter how you slice it, there's a lot of money that's involved in making sure that happens. So I would suggest having this conversation with your wireless carrier if you have not yet. Ask them about becoming a partner. I know. What are you thinking here? And I'll talk on behalf of Sprint just because Jeff's in the room and I want to props to Jeff. At Sprint, for example, there is a division of Sprint called CNS. It's Custom Network Solutions. And they have actually created a product specifically for education. And it is a private network that can be deployed to offload some of that mobile learning traffic so that they share in the bandwidth requirements that are needed to make it all happen. If you haven't had that conversation with your carrier, you need to do that. And that also was worth the price of admission. All right? Good? So we got classroom connectivity, making sure that we've got enough bandwidth to make this happen. The second piece is complete connectivity. The power of mobile learning. I was with a superintendent who said, "I don't know why we call this mobile learning. These devices never leave the school. What's mobile about that?" And he was right. And I get it. I understand why that happens. You look at E-rate, for example. A lot of us are doing this with E-rate funding, and they won't pay for off-campus usage. And so that has to be cost allocated, and that creates a lot of additional cost, right? But the reality of it is that kids will extend their learning day. If they have access to a device 24/7 and they can take it off campus, they will use it. I'm telling you, they will use it. My granddaughter, great example. So my grandson, her little brother, his birthday is today. I would give him a shout out on the video. His birthday is today. And he's a soccer player, not all that great, but he tries really hard. Yeah, could you edit that out? Because I really don't want him to see that. Thank you. All right. But you will find Mackenzie, his big sister, who enjoys, at 11, really enjoys going to his soccer practices. You'll find her curled up in a chair with her telephone, with her iPhone, and she'll be doing math facts because she likes math. I don't know where she got that, but she really enjoys math. And that's something that you don't get with that laptop or with that notebook or with that tablet. They will extend their learning day. It is, we've seen some numbers on LMS usage that indicates that the peak hours of LMS usage, learning management system usage, is between the hours of 8 and 10 p.m. So kids will organically extend their day if they can. I actually told that to an IT director outside of Indianapolis, and he goes, "I know, we can't even run maintenance on the darn thing because the kids won't get off us. We're up till midnight." So they'll do it. They will absolutely do it. Having complete connectivity allows for that differentiated learning. I love the ability for them to be able to take this and take it at their own pace and do the things that they enjoy and the things that they want at their own pace. And then, of course, the E-rate challenge is the big issue. But I will tell you this, no matter what stage you are in, no matter what you're looking at and where you're going, you have to figure out a way to bake off-campus usage into your program. And if you think about your own usage, right? I have been like 10 minutes from my house and realized I left my corporate laptop at home, and I'll be like, forget it, right? I've been half an hour away and realized I've left my phone at home. Oh, you know what happened there. You turn right around and you go back and get it. So when you build this into the curriculum deeply, where they're utilizing a device that is theirs, that is personalized, that is one-to-one, you've got to figure out a way to help them do it off campus. Okay? All right. Good. That's 2. How many are there altogether? All right. Just making sure you're awake. Here's the 3rd one, device options. So I love this because everyone has a different idea of BYOD and what it means, and for kids it means whatever I can bring. But standardization is absolutely critical. You've got to standardize on some devices that I refer to as AAU, approved for academic use. So think about this. When we all started with mobile learning in the wireless industry, we started with the HTC Mogul, which was a little tiny telephone with a slide-out keyboard and a 3.5-inch screen. Right? Ooh, baby, running that Windows Mobile. Come on. I see my IT guys are going, yeah. All right. We progressed to netbooks and notebooks. Okay. And then Apple did that thing with that darn tablet that you were all here typing on, and I love it. All right. So the iPad defined the product category, the tablet category, with its 9.7-inch screen. All the competitors to the iPad, right? The Nook Color, the Kindle Fire, the Nexus 7. What size screen? 7 inches. Put so much pressure on Apple, what did they do? iPad Mini, right? 7.9-inch screen. So tablets are doing this. So we started mobile learning with a 3.5-inch screen on a telephone. The first iPhone, 3.5-inch screen. The second iPhone, a 4-inch screen. The Samsung Galaxy S3, 4.8-inch screen. The new Galaxy Note 2, 5.5-inch screen. Tablets are doing this. Phones are doing this. They should just meet in the middle, call it 6 inches, and be done, right? But because of that piece, we had to start taking a look in the industry at whether or not the phone was a viable platform for education. And the answer is no surprise to anyone in this room. It is absolutely yes. But there are so many types of telephones and so many types of devices that are out there, and you really have to think about the application, as Jeff talked about earlier. What is this going to be used for? Is it a one-size-fits-all? Probably not. It's generally the difference between data consumption and data creation, right? And there was someone on the Today Show did an interview with a student, and I'll have to find the clip because I have to talk to NBC about incorporating it. But they had this kid, and he was sitting at a desktop, and the interviewer was asking him about using a telephone, and she said, "Oh, you wouldn't write a paper on that." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I got this. I'm all thumbs." And the whole thing about the piece was the difference between typing with your thumbs and typing on a keyboard, and is this really necessary anymore? And I found it very intriguing. So see if you can't find that. Okay. But the bottom line is that you've got to standardize. You've got to standardize on devices for utilization. You've got to standardize on devices from an IT standpoint. You've got to absolutely figure out what you're going to use. You also need to take control. There has to be a consistent experience. You've got to really sit down, like Jeff said earlier, and think about how we're going to use this, what it's going to be used for, and where you're going to go with this. It is a big ask to ask a teacher to take the years and years and years of curriculum that they have acquired, developed, and poured their heart and soul into, and say, we're going to go digital. I need for you to make this all digital. And I'm not talking about making your paper tests SurveyMonkey tests, right? I'm talking about some of that creative, media-rich, embedded, take advantage of the technology piece. It has to happen, and to ask a teacher to do that is insane unless you're going to guarantee that there is a consistent experience in that classroom, as long as they know that the work they're going to invest in this is something that not only everyone can access, but is sustainable over the long haul. It's got to be baked into your program. And then the other bit about this is, or comes to finance. So do I have any finance people in the room? No? Okay, so we can talk about them? Yeah. Because the easiest part of all of this is getting the money, right? Yeah. Okay. In your program, you need to be able to leverage the buying power of the district and leverage the ability of parents to participate, which we will talk about a bit later. But if you structure this properly, there is a way to do this in a manner that's not only economical but sustainable. The biggest challenge that I have seen is that schools or school districts have been able to get to one-to-one maybe once, right? They've gotten a grant, they've gotten some sort of incremental funding, we've been able to get 10,000 iPads for the school. We all know technology lasts forever. Right. Anybody got carts of old laptops that they're using for nightstands? Yeah. So it's got to be something that's sustainable, and being able to leverage funding from a variety of sources is going to make that happen. But be aware, purchasing power of the district or the school is a big component of this. All right. Fourth component, data service options. I will tell you this is critical. Look at this. This is some information that came from the CTIA. So that's the governing body for the wireless industry. 1.1 trillion, with a T, megabytes of data was sent through wireless carriers from July of 2011 to June of 2012. And that 1.1 trillion megabytes was a 104% increase over the previous 12 months. Wireless carriers networks, the things that we're seeing in the industry, we're getting hammered, we're getting slammed. And you can bet that if you do a mobile learning initiative properly, your network will also get hammered. Okay? So you've got to make sure that in this planning that you sort out ways to overcome that. The true nature of mobile learning means off-campus, which means not just on your network, but outside in the world. That being the case, an unlimited data plan is the optimal. At the very least, you need to have some sort of real-time data usage monitoring, so you definitely want to make a note of that. You want to be able to absolutely, in real time, sort out what's being utilized and then take control of those devices to eliminate any potential overage costs. That, right? And again, I'm going to talk to you about leveraging the purchasing power of the organization to get this done. Okay? So far, so good? Do we have a decent checklist baking? Yeah, okay, good. Device lifecycle management. Okay, so now I'm gonna speak specifically to my IT brethren. This is the biggie. Raise your hand if you have done a large deployment. Come on. Yeah, didn't that suck? No doubt. It is one of the biggest headaches on the planet. And I don't care if it's 100 or 800, somebody is not getting their summer off. Yeah, because we have to do this thing. And it's brutal. When you think about what it takes, like when you get your own telephone or a new laptop, and what you have to go through individually to configure it to make sure that it's ready to go, imagine doing that 300, 400, 800, 1,000 times. It is brutal, and I don't care how you automate it, it is still brutal. So what you want to find is a partner who is capable of life cycle management. There are carrier resources to do this, and I'm going to outline to you something that's really kind of cool. Think about this for your next deployment. Think about a parent portal where a parent can log in and be presented with a series of devices that are approved for academic use, like we talked about before. They select the device that's appropriate for their student, and then all of the that request is forwarded to the school or to the district. It's vetted to make sure that it is an actual request. There really is a student. There really is a parent. Not that anyone would try anything funky like that, right? Yeah. And once it's all deemed to be proper, that request is then sent on to your partner. That partner then pulls that device, unboxes it, does all the staging and logistics, sets it up for use on your network, sets it up for use on the network outside and the complete connectivity, handles all of the security installation, all of the configuration. They make that thing ready to go, put it back in the box, and send it directly to the household, so that when the student arrives to class that first day of school, they just turn it on and it's all set and ready to go. So how would that be, my IT friends? Expensive? Who said that? I like it. I like it. Well, if it were expensive, it wouldn't be much of a presentation, would it? Right? If it weren't affordable. Okay. So if you think about having a partner who can do all of that setup and staging, and then handle the device and that support that we talked about, how the teacher would need to be able to provide support, or if you align yourself with a partner who provides support through the entire life cycle, that is a huge win. So you're talking about everything from the logistics and staging all the way through its deployment, through break fix and repair and replacement and all of that, help desks for students, help desks for parents, et cetera, all the way through the time that the device is either returned or the student leaves the district or graduates. That's the type of structure that you want to bake into your program. So then the question becomes, so what do I do with those BYOD? Those devices would go through the same process, but instead of acquiring a device, those devices would just be registered in this, and the same level of support, etc., would take place. All right? I'm getting these looks. I'm getting these looks. Have I left anybody behind? I am a no adult left behind kind of guy, so let's go. All right. Okay. Help desk again, that's the other piece. This is what needs to be baked into this entire program. Number 5. All right? Good? Okay. Number 6. Security. Filtering and mobile device management. SIPA is the number 1 issue. We can't have devices, especially devices that have been deployed by a school or given to a student by a school, that is not SIPA compliant. And it needs to be SIPA compliant whether it's on premise or not, and regardless of the method of connectivity. So as you are planning for your deployment, that consideration has to be paramount. Mobile device management. We talked about the potentially disruptive nature of devices in classroom. Utilizing tools that have been used with enterprise customers forever, for customers that wanted to allow their employees to bring their own devices to school, or to work. There are these bits of software and applications called mobile device management that allow for you to actually take control of devices. And in the educational framework, you would look at having multiple profiles. A device, while it is in school, on campus, would have an academic profile. So the school would define what that would be. And that could be things like, we'll disable text messaging, we'll disable the ringer, we will hide the Facebook icons, we will control the device so that it has a true academic profile. We talked earlier about the consistency of teachers and their being able to have a consistent experience inside the classroom. if every device in the classroom has that same academic profile, then the teacher can be guaranteed that they can deliver that content in the way that it needs to be delivered, and that they don't have to worry about things like buzzing and beeping and clicking and all the disruptive nature. They don't have to worry about the ability to access the 3G or the 4G network on a smartphone or a connected tablet, because that academic profile would not allow that stuff to happen. Then when the child leaves or the student leaves school, it reverts to a casual profile where all of those things may become available again. The casual profile can be defined by the school and the cooperation with the parents. And it can be triggered, the profile change can be triggered for your IT guys by the SSID of the network, by geofencing, which means actually using the GPS chipset to determine the location of the device, and when it leaves that area, triggers the casual profile. It can also be triggered by time of day. So there are a lot of different ways to make that happen. Right? So I talked earlier about the fact that no matter how you put this together, you've got to make sure that the kids have the ability to use the device on and off premise. This is how you're able to accommodate that potentially disruptive nature. Okay? Good. And then last but not least, the learning management system. And it's, again, we talked about this, the content needing to be immersive, needing to be deeply embedded into the curriculum. It has been my experience working with school districts that I've seen just a moderate adoption. I've seen districts who have invested in a learning management system, but even though they've done that, they have some teachers who will use it and some teachers who won't, right? They've got some teachers who are really, really good at it. They've got some teachers that are not all that great. And you've even got those, some teachers who are rogues. I love these guys. These are the ones that they'll set up their own Moodle sites, right? And they'll do their own thing. You've got to bring it all together into one system, because that is what lends itself to that collaboration. There are synergies that are created when everyone is on the same platform. So make sure that as you do this, that you have that deep discussion and really evaluate learning management systems and what the capabilities are, because you want to find that one platform that satisfies most needs. You won't make everybody happy. I know, hard to believe. Right? But one platform. So standardization. It's got to be easy for everyone to use. It's got to be easy for IT to maintain and support. And the biggie, it needs to resolve properly across multiple platforms. Now, I personally have a Moodle server, right? And it's wonderful if you're on a desktop or a tablet. It is painful on a smartphone, right? So you have to make sure that you take those all of the platforms into consideration. All right. So to recap, classroom connectivity, complete connectivity, device options, data and service options, like I said, unlimited or at least real-time data monitoring, device lifecycle management, security filtering and mobile device management, and then a learning management system. Those are the 7 components that you have to sort out. They're not negotiable. You've got to sort them all out. Okay? All right. If you do this and do this effectively, someone earlier said it's expensive. And, okay, I'll give you that. Not really. It's more expensive than not doing this stuff, right? But it has to happen. So the question becomes, how do you make that happen, given the fact that the money has always been the big constraint to begin with? And that's where we start getting parental cooperation and parental contribution. There are 3 groups of parents that we will have to work with. The first is the parent that actually needs to acquire a device. And this is where the school can put together a branded school program for the acquisition of those academically approved devices. And that's where, again, where we talked about that parent portal, where the parent would go in and they would select from the approved devices. This is something that leverages the buying power of the school. And what that allows is, it allows for school, or for parents. We all know that whether we do anything or not, every kid will have a smartphone. There's no question about it. And it's funny, when I was way early in my career, last summer, no, just kidding, way early in my career, I used to sit across the table from business owners and I would say, "Hi, I'm Damon, and I'm from Cellular One." Yeah, remember that name? Yeah, and I want to talk to you about getting cell phones for your drivers or your field workers or whatever. And they would look at me and they'd go, "Are you out of your ever-loving mind? There is no way I would ever give a phone to one of my field guys." Now, this was back when a handheld telephone was $3,000, so I kind of get that, right? But it was funny because even then, we knew that one day everyone would have a phone. So it was never a question of whether or not they were going to get these phones for their drivers or their whatever. It was just when. Today, when I talk to superintendents and I talk to administrators and IT professionals and I say, we want to talk to you, you're going to want to talk about getting mobile devices for all of your students, they go, "Are you out of your ever-loving mind? There's no way. How are we going to ever do that?" And I have to say, I have to chuckle internally because I know it's going to happen. It's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. So being able to acquire those devices and setting up a program that allows for parents who don't already have a device for their child to get one, leveraging the school's economics, we can actually you can get devices that are set up for these kids that are approved for academic use, that have all of the filtering and all of that stuff, and it would actually cost the parent less than what it would if they were to go into a store and get an unfiltered device that's not acceptable for use in school. So think about that one. Second group, unable or unwilling to participate. And we usually think of that as an economic piece, right? Just can't afford it. But the reality of it is, there are ideological constraints. You've got some parents who, "I just do not want my child on the internet," right? So that has to be sorted as well. That's a group that we'll have to sort through. And because of that, the recommendation that I make to school districts is that you utilize a device that is a bare bones device. We have to make sure that every student has a device, because you can't work effectively in the classroom without it. And then, of course, there's the legalities of equal access. So that is a device that is it is the minimum viable academic device. It's usually not a device that is set up with a telephone number for them to use for phone calls or for texting. And I had one superintendent say to me, "You know what's going to happen? These kids are going to rebel. And they're going to go, Mom, I could have gotten an A if I had my own phone. I could have gotten an A if I had my own tablet." And so what initially would start out as something that probably would seem like a big burden on the school, kids will drive adoption and they'll force their parents to get them stuff. And I can prove it. Today, my grandson this evening at 8 will be getting his iPhone. I know. It's the only thing he asks for. Like, "Peyton, what do you want? You want this light skateboard? I want an iPhone." You're 8! Whatever. All right? So, and then the last piece, parents who already have a device that's a device that they already own, that is one of the devices that's been approved by IT and by finance curriculum as for use in schools. And the thing about these devices is they are already owned by the parents, but the parents still must agree to allow for the device to be controlled under the mobile management system, for it to have an academic profile. You can let them have free reign on the casual bit, but you've got to make sure that they have to agree to the academic profile. Okay? I know there are questions. I can't wait to hear the questions. All right. Ready? Okay. There are 4 groups of stakeholders that have to be addressed in these deployments. The first is administration. None of this stuff takes place without consensus, and these types of decisions for this type of a deployment, very large, very high dollar, very, very complicated, and so everyone's got to buy in. Administration has to provide the vision for it. There are a lot of very visionary teachers that get stumped by administrators, and there are a lot of very visionary administrators who get jacked by teachers, and it's just not right. right? But ultimately, the administration has to provide the vision for the program. They're also responsible for the communication. And this type of deployment, there are a lot of moving parts. It's not just communication internally, but you have communication with parents, you have communication with the community, you have communication with the media. It is a big, big deal when you start talking about changing the way that things get done. So administration is the first faction that needs to be brought in. Curriculum. Curriculum is responsible for realizing that vision. Okay? And very early on, and Jeff mentioned it when he was talking, you have to define what you're going to do with this stuff. You can't just deploy it. It can't just sit on the surface. And I can tell you, I've visited locations where there are hundreds of devices that are still in boxes because there was no good plan. Okay? So define the goals and define those success metrics. How do you know that this was a good thing? Right? The next group, finance. It's always been about the money. Where do you come up with the money to make this happen? And here's the biggie. This is critical. Once you go down a mobile learning path, a one-to-one mobile learning path, whether it's BYOD, whether it's some hybrid combination, once you start down that path, you have to be prepared to sustain it. It is really, really hard to unravel, right? And it's very expensive to do it wrong. So you've got to make sure that before it all happens, that you sort out how to make it happen and how to fund it forever. Not just for this school year or the next school year, how to fund it forever. Okay? And then the last group, IT, design, logistics, implementation, all of the stuff that takes away your summers and makes your life a living, yes, yes. Got to bring these guys into the loop. Being an old IT guy, I hated having projects thrust upon me. I love being able to have the input to do it because if we all collaborate to do it, then usually it gets done to everybody's satisfaction, and these guys are critical. All right? So those are the four factions: administration, curriculum, finance, and IT. Get them all involved. All right? So there you go. Now, I know I've shared a lot in a really short period of time, and I know that you will have questions, and you will probably have questions specific to your school and to your deployments. So for us, set up on LinkedIn a group. So you can either go to LinkedIn and search one-to-one mobile learning network, or you can scan this QR code because we are a new millennium kind of crew here, right? Yay! All right. And that's a place where we can continue to talk. I know you're going to have questions. I've actually posted a question. I'm the only member of this group because I did it just for us, right? So the question that I posted to the group is, what is your #1 mobile learning issue? And I would love to get the feedback from you so that we can keep talking. All right? Good? Okay, so raise your hand if you learned something new that you didn't know before from the time that we were together. Okay, all right, I will take that. That is respectable. I want to thank you very much. I've had just the blast, and I can't wait to continue the conversation.